Hey guys, alright? Welcome everyone. The story begins with a lively party at the Casablanca resort, where Weston and Valentina are on vacation. While he is at the bar, a hooded man pulls Valentina's bag, but she holds on tight and even scratches his arm. Upon returning, Weston asks if he should go after the thief, but she says it's not necessary. After the scare passes, they enjoy the nighttime fireworks show, which is a tradition at the resort. The next day, they wake up late for the scheduled outing. The boat owner is named Ramirez and he is already impatient when a tourist named Curtis arrives, offering double the price. He is with his wife Larissa and daughter Eliza, who are very eager to go boating. Ramirez says his boat is reserved, and the situation sparks the interest of a man named Gabe. He approaches Curtis and agrees to his terms right away. As he brings the luggage inside, Gabe realizes he forgot to properly hide the boat's real owner. A Coast Guard agent named Nico passes by, notifying that a storm is approaching. He sees the family leaving on the boat Catch Me, which belongs to his friend Kane, but he doesn't know that Gabe is on the other side making a direct call. Still at the hotel, Valentina sees that she has received several messages from her boss and decides to leave her phone in the room to enjoy the day without worries. On board the Catch Me, Curtis and Larissa bet that whoever catches the biggest fish gets to choose the seat on the flight back home. Eliza is not very excited about the competition, but her dad convinces her to put her phone down for a few minutes. On the other side of the boat, Gabe disposes of the murder weapon, leaving a trail of blood in the water. The knife sinks to the ocean floor, and soon after, a frightening shadow passes by it. At the same time, Curtis gets excited by the tug on his line, and Larissa encourages her daughter to help him. Gabe takes advantage of their distraction to steal money from the wallets. The family's excitement takes a hit when Curtis pulls in the line and brings up a shark's head. The worst part is that the rest of the animal has clearly been eaten by another, even larger predator. Suddenly, the boat shakes violently, and Curtis falls into the water. Larissa and Eliza start screaming and crying, calling out for him. He surfaces and reassures them that everything is fine, but before he can reach the boat, something pulls him hard, and the water around him starts turning red. Gabe comes to see what is happening and is also terrified. Trying to save her father, Eliza ends up falling into the sea too, and the shark wastes no time. Larissa doesn't stop screaming as she watches her daughter being devoured by the predator. Ignoring her despair, Gabe tosses a life raft into the sea and begins to row away. Larissa's suffering only ends when the shark returns and swallows her whole. Weston and Valentina are just arriving at the pier. Ramirez complains about the delay and asks to see the necessary documents, since he doesn't plan to accompany them. Weston proves he has all the licenses, and Ramirez explains where the diving equipment is. He also warns them about the approaching storm and mentions there's a phone number in the cabin in case there are any problems. The trip starts peacefully until suddenly the boat stops abruptly, startling both of them. Weston says he will check what the problem is, as he has worked with boats before and will probably know how to fix it without needing to call anyone. On solid ground, Nico talks with his colleague, Margot. He finds it strange to have received a worried call from Captain Kane's wife, as he himself saw Kane's boat leaving with a family earlier. Nico expresses that he thinks it's best to patrol, and Margot says she can go in his place. On Ramirez's boat, Weston manages to fix the problem, and Valentina says it's time to dive. Planning to propose to her underwater, he discreetly puts the ring in a plastic bag. Arriving at the deck, he sees Valentina already quite far from the boat, and she takes the chance to tease him for being slow. She dives again and finds a statue at the bottom of the sea. Weston arrives just as she is taking a photo and is almost scared to death when he touches her unexpectedly. They continue exploring and observing the fish, unaware of the shark lurking very close by. Swimming among the wreckage of a ship, Valentina starts taking more photos. Weston decides it's the perfect moment and grabs the engagement ring, but the plastic bag slips out of his hand and floats to the surface. Very anxious, he swims in the same direction, leaving Valentina alone down below. She starts looking around, trying to figure out where he went, and comes face to face with the shark coming toward her quickly. The equipment muffles her screams, but her panic is evident. Swimming as fast as she can, she manages to slip into a hole in the ship just in time. However, she has no way to alert her boyfriend and is now practically trapped inside. Thinking quickly, she sets her camera to fire several flashes in succession. As expected, this enrages the shark and distracts it while Valentina escapes the ship from the other side. She reaches the surface just as the beast bites down on the camera. Weston is also there, but the two are far apart. She warns him that there's a shark down below, and Weston says he will lure it away. The dorsal fin appears very close to Valentina, almost within a meter of her, but it abruptly veers away when Weston starts banging on the hull. Instead of climbing the ladder, he bravely confronts the shark, hitting it with the oxygen tank. The creature eventually gives him a break, and both manage to return to the boat. Valentina is feeling sick and disoriented, as she surfaced too quickly. She wants to leave, but Weston says that the boat's engine will attract the shark, and it's better to wait for it to drift away first. Then, Valentina begins accusing him of having fled to the surface as soon as the shark appeared without even trying to warn her. Realizing he can't explain and keep the secret at the same time, he tells her about the engagement ring. She cries, and they are both so emotional that he decides to go ahead even without the jewel, using a plastic seal as a substitute. On one knee, he asks for her hand, and Valentina is about to say yes when something hits the boat with tremendous force, knocking both of them down. This makes Weston realize that waiting is not an option. He raises the anchor and tries to use the radio, but the boat gets hit again, and this time Valentina falls and hits her head, losing consciousness. Weston panics and rushes to help her. The shark continues to ram the hull without stopping until it manages to flip the boat and both fall into the water. Valentina is still unconscious, and Weston has to drag her to the overturned hull while the dorsal fin continues to circle them. With great effort, he manages to revive her and explains what happened. In tears, she says she can't see very well. Since this could be a result of the blow to her head, Weston becomes very concerned and says they need to call someone soon. However, her cell phone is at the hotel, and his is in the backpack inside the overturned boat. Weston starts testing her vision and concludes that she can detect movements, although not perfectly. He asks her to keep watch and lightly tap on the hull if the shark disappears or comes too close. Valentina gets very nervous realizing he intends to dive for the phone. Nonetheless, he convinces her that there is no other option and leaves her with a pipe to defend herself. He enters the water cautiously and quickly finds the backpack, but Valentina loses sight of the shark. The predator is too close when Weston returns and sinks its teeth into his leg. Valentina uses the pipe to hit the animal and manages to scare it off long enough to improvise a bandage. At least the cell phone still works, and Weston manages to contact Nico. He explains everything that happened and says they are near an island, but he can't send their exact location because the signal is not very good there. Nico says there is already a rescue team looking for another boat and will send them as quickly as possible. Over the radio, he warns Margot about the shark, and she is shocked because the last one to appear there was 15 years ago. She also mentions that she still hasn't found Captain Kane's boat. As the couple thinks the situation can't worsen, the announced storm finally arrives, and heavy rain begins to fall. Furthermore, the shark seems to be getting closer to them with every circle it makes around the boat. Valentina says she'd rather risk the water than succumb to bad luck and asks Weston to tie the boat's rope around her waist. She still can't see much and he can't swim, but the plan is to combine what each one can do. Valentina will swim to the island, and Weston's job is to pull the rope tightly if she veers off course, as she won't be able to correct her path without seeing. It's a very risky plan, but it may be their only chance, since the sound of the rain can cover the sound of Valentina's strokes. Weston teaches her how to make a secure knot and ties the phone to her. When it's time to start, neither of them knows where the beast is. Despite that, Valentina jumps into the water and begins to swim. The shark appears right after, and Weston shouts for her to stop. He rubs his dive suit on his wounded leg and throws it into the water as bait. Valentina resumes swimming frantically as soon as the shark swims away. With great effort, Weston keeps his balance on the hull until the creature gives up, then he feels relieved to see Valentina has reached the island. She ties the rope to a rock and begins to pull it, but the boat doesn't budge. Moreover, the shark is right in the way, and it's not safe to attempt this strategy until it leaves. However, not everything is lost, as Nico calls Valentina, saying the rescue boat is arriving at the island. She informs Weston, but he says he can't see anything. Margot also tells Nico that there is no capsized boat around. In return, she finds the Catch Me drifting, and its only passenger is Kane's body. Margot reports the discovery and explains that there are signs of a shark attack on the boat, but that's not what killed Kane. Nico concludes that Valentina and Margot are on different islands. This means the island where Valentina is located is called Devil's Reef. Due to the tide, this island is submerged at night, and Margot won't reach it before then. So Nico warns Valentina that the rescue will be by plane and alerts her that the tide will rise soon. Increasingly anxious, she begins to pull the rope with all her strength and manages to pull the boat free, but her little progress is interrupted by the shark attacking the hull. Startled, the rope slips from Valentina's hands, and she can't see where it went. While she gropes around the ground, the shark continues advancing ruthlessly, and Weston barely keeps on top of the boat. When she finally finds the rope, someone starts speaking Spanish right behind her. Very scared and still unable to see well, she tells the stranger to back off. Then we see that it's Gabe, the murderer who stole the other boat. Unaware of all this, Valentina calms down when he extends his hand and begins speaking in English, explaining that he also ended up on the island after an accident. Weston does not like seeing his future wife with a strange man on a deserted island. However, Gabe helps Valentina pull the rope, and this makes all the difference, bringing the boat to shore much faster. Anxious, she asks if Weston is near, revealing her vision problem to Gabe. The couple finally reunites with a kiss, and Weston thanks Gabe for the help. He says he made a fire further into the island and invites the two to join him. Speaking about Valentina's vision, he mentions something similar happened to a friend of his and that the chances of reversing the situation are slim. Weston tries to change the subject and asks how Gabe ended up there. He tells a long lie about a happy outing with his parents, in which his younger sister was learning to fish. The part about the shark attack is similar to what truly happened, but with Curtis's family. Weston and Valentina extend their condolences, assuring him that the three will get through this. When Valentina mentions that the Coast Guard is on the way, Gabe's expression is more worried than relieved. Weston also becomes concerned upon learning that the tide is rising and asks if they could use the raft if the plane is delayed. Gabe says that raft is no good and that it would be better to use their boat. Asking for a moment alone with Weston, Valentina expresses that she doesn't trust Gabe very much, as the story he told has many holes. However, Gabe is the only one who is physically well, and Weston says that without him, their chances of survival are much worse. So they begin to move the boat off the rocks, planning to stay on it until rescue arrives. While the two men work on this, Valentina trips on something and starts screaming when she realizes it's someone partially eaten. By the clothes, Gabe recognizes Curtis and lies to the others that it's his father. Near the body, he also finds the plastic bag and, based on the shape of the small box, deduces it's a jewel and puts it in his pants pocket. Valentina is very scared and says they need to get out of there soon. Weston explains that the boat is in good condition but remains stuck on the rocks, as he and Gabe don't have enough strength to push it. Then she suggests they could use the shark to help with that. For this, they will need some kind of bait, and Gabe says that fish won't satisfy the monster's appetite. He suggests they tie Curtis's remains and use that as bait. The others are horrified by the idea, but he cries, saying his father would be happy if he could at least save him. The performance is convincing enough, and the three agree to at least try. At first, it seems that the shark is ignoring the bait and that the plan will fail. But then it suddenly bites into Curtis's body and drags the boat into the water in a matter of seconds. As planned, the rope comes loose with the force, leaving the boat free for the guys to climb aboard. Weston leaves the cell phone with Valentina and asks her to hold tightly to a rock until he comes to get her. The water is already at her shins when Nico calls, warning that the plane is taking off now and will arrive in less than an hour. When she says there's a third survivor, Nico connects the dots and tells the couple not to trust him, explaining everything that happened on the other boat. Unfortunately, the boat is already too far away, and she can't warn her boyfriend. Weston is only able to fix the engine and bring the boat closer after dark. He calls for Valentina to come to them, but now she can barely see anything and the current is very strong. So Weston decides to leave the boat and go get her, telling Gabe to keep an eye on the shark. Valentina starts to guide herself by his voice, walking very slowly to avoid sudden movements. They meet halfway and hug, while we see the shark swimming right by the couple. Speaking very quietly, she tells him what Nico said about Kane's murder. Weston says he will deal with that after they get out of the water. It's getting cold, and Gabe puts on his hooded sweatshirt before going to help the other two. Just as Valentina starts to climb onto the boat, the shark appears and knocks her back into the water. In a panic, Weston begins to retreat, shouting for her to get up quickly, and the shark swims rapidly toward him. Valentina screams as she sees him facing the animal with punches. He seems to be winning the fight and starts swimming back, but never reaches the boat, as the shark attacks him from below before that. Terrified, Gabe starts to leave in the boat without waiting for Valentina to board. Thankfully for her, the repair wasn't that good, and the boat comes to a jarring stop. Then, she climbs aboard silently and tiptoes forward, surprising Gabe with a punch. She accuses him of attempting to escape, leaving the two behind. Gabe swears he thought she was also eaten and extends his hand again, asking her to trust him. But that's when Valentina notices his scratched arm and the hooded sweatshirt. There's something caught in the sleeve, and she discovers it's part of her own bag strap. Gabe still tries to explain himself, but ends up digging his own grave further. She takes her anger out on his arm and says the authorities already know everything he has done. Giving up on pretending, he knocks her down with a kick and says he will be long gone by the time the plane arrives, but he mentions that he liked her and regrets that they can't be together. Increasingly horrified, Valentina locks herself in the cabin and looks for something to use to defend herself. Gabe kicks the door down with several kicks and sits right next to her, saying things got out of hand, but he's not a bad person. When she raises a metal bar to hit him, he grabs her arm and becomes even more enraged. Then she grabs a piece of wood with a nail and hits him square in the face. Howling in pain, he removes the nail from his cheek, unaware that blood is trickling between the boards. The shark is immediately attracted and starts slamming into the boat with such force that it manages to break through the hull. Water floods the cabin, and Valentina can only hear Gabe's screams, begging for her help before disappearing in a pool of red. The only thing that returns floating is the stolen box. Valentina manages to grab it and puts the engagement ring on her finger. Determined to save herself, she adjusts the wiring the same way she saw Weston doing earlier and swims to the deck hatch, forcing the lid upward. The shark is nearby when she starts the engine, and as soon as the boat moves, it begins attacking it from below. Then Valentina reaches her limit and goes to the front of the boat to challenge the enemy. She grabs a sharpened steel bar and waits for the next attack. Margot and Nico are arriving by plane when the final duel begins. The shark lunges at the boat, and Valentina strikes its head multiple times. Then she pierces its body with the bar, finally defeating the predator, which begins sinking into the sea. However, the boat quickly sinks, but fortunately, it happens just when help arrives. Valentina sees the plane, but Margot can't spot her in the middle of the ocean. They are almost about to leave when the traditional fireworks display begins, lighting up the sky. Only then does Margot see Valentina waving her arms, and she is finally rescued. Looking sadly at the engagement ring, she accepts Weston's proposal.